Over the past several days, I've been talking about Ben Franklin as the embodiment of entrepreneurship, of inventiveness, of creativity, of industry. Ben Franklin was, in a sense, capitalist man. But then the question arises, an amusing question, at least in some senses, although depressing in others. If Ben Franklin is capitalist man, who today would represent socialist man? Well, I think my answer would be Bernie Sanders. Why? Because socialist man for me is kind of the do-nothing, the loafer, the bum, the guy without any skills, the unenterprising guy who's nevertheless proud of his lack of enterprise. Now, this kind of character, by the way, exists worldwide. I had a cousin who was a lot like this, and this is a guy who, in fact, when I was about 12, he was in his 20s at that time. My cousin. He's actually my uncle, but we were so close in age that I call him a cousin. He was working for an advertising agency which asked him to come up with jingles and slogans, but he could never come up with any. So he'd actually say, Dinesh, listen, I'll buy you ice cream if you can come up with slogans. Here, I'm working for a company. And I'd say, well, how about this? How about that? This one will rhyme. What do you think? And he'd be like, oh man, Dinesh, that's genius. Yeah, I'm going to submit that. So I was basically at 12 doing this guy's job. Why? Because essentially here was a guy who did nothing with his time. Nothing with his time. And this is Bernie Sanders. The Sanders story is kind of telling. This is a guy who, well into middle age, did not even have a steady job. His main output at that time was essentially to create an illegitimate kid with a woman named Susan Campbell Mott. When he was in college, most of his time was at the Young Socialist League, and the two big causes that he championed were sexual freedom and socialist agitation. At one point, Bernie Sanders began to put out the idea, crazy idea, that sexual repression leads to cancer. He got this idea from another kind of whack job, a theorist named William Reich, who ended up in prison for selling bogus sexual treatments. So this is Sanders, an absolute crackpot, a clown, a loser. When he turned to social activism, this is the kind of stuff he would put out. This is from an essay that the young Bernie Sanders, "The revolution is life versus death." I'm now going to quote from him. "The years come and go. Suicide, nervous breakdown, cancer, sexual deadness, heart attack, alcoholism, senility at 50, slow death, fast death, and then in all caps, death." So basically, this is the kind of talk you'd basically get in an asylum from a crank. Sanders teamed up with another socialist named Peter Diamondstone, and these guys became friends because, quote, according to Diamondstone, they quote, all knew the same communists. And here's Diamondstone. He goes, "I would stop at his house. I'd sleep downstairs. We'd yell at each other all night long. And sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd say, we got to stop this so we can get some sleep. 5 minutes later, we'd be yelling at each other again." This is life in the socialist commune. By the way, in 1971, Sanders actually joined a commune, but it was one of those self-sufficient, grow your own food. And so everybody was doing a little bit of work because you had to put in the plants into the ground. You got to do the harvest and so on. Bernie refused to do any work or any repairs. He just wanted to sit around talking about endless political discussion. So he was expelled for laziness from the commune. Now, what do you do if you're so lazy that you can't even function in a commune? Well, the obvious answer is you go into politics. That's exactly what Bernie did. But before he did this, he was so poor. He listed his occupation as journalist, but he published nothing. Once in a while, he'd write something in some socialist rag, probably made 50 cents. But so he couldn't support himself. So yeah, he's leeching off the government through unemployment. He's also leeching off his friends. At one point, he moved next door to an artist, and according to the artist, Bernie would, quote, take extension cords and run down to the basement and plug them into the landlord's outlet. So this guy didn't want to pay his utility bill. He was trying to leech off by getting free electricity. So this is the kind of guy he is. He's a perfect embodiment of the socialist lifestyle. And the point I want to make here is simply this, that look, you know, you can have socialist man, but socialist man, and this was also the case of my cousin, is dependent on capitalist man, because capitalist man has to create the abundance that makes it possible to support the dependency of socialist man. So another way to put it is that Ben Franklin types don't need Bernie Sanders types, but Bernie Sanders types need Ben Franklin types. And you'd think that Bernie Sanders types would show some appreciation, but they don't. They, in fact, shamelessly leech off the Franklin types and then denounce the Franklin types for being greedy and selfish, while they, the Bernie types, are being virtuous. It's a complete moral inversion. So I think in the end, you'd have to say that Bernie Sanders, like Ben Franklin, is a self-made man. But if Bernie ever has the occasion to tell that to you, you should simply take it as an apology.